leave across to yourself.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Can you hear me clearly?
We can indeed, thank you.
Perfect. So thank you firstly to Sarah and Rose for putting together this exceptional event. It's brilliant to see all the multiple technologies coming together and enabling us when we can't all be face to face. Briefly, I'm going to cover what we can leverage in terms of technology around resource stewardship. First of all, though, I will follow in Accenture's tradition of we usually do a safety, sustainability, or an inclusion and diversity share. So I will do a brief safety share and then a bit more of an introduction to myself and to what we're doing at Accenture. What is resource stewardship then? And then what are the industry trends and motivations around that? So what's driving our move towards resource stewardship? And then cover off the technology enabling responsible mining, and I'll give you various examples of that, although obviously we're limited on time, so those will be just a few examples of a multitude of what's possible. So the sustainability share, I wanted to highlight food waste. A third of the world's food waste is wasted every year. And that's enough to feed 2 billion people that are hungry around the world, and also in the process waste energy and water that's been utilised to create the food, to generate the food, to grow the food, manufacture the food. In Europe alone, 47 million tonnes of food gets wasted in households. And so a few tips here, which some of this COVID-19 will have pushed us to embrace anyway, and I do hope we follow through with that once the world returns to its new normal. Plan ahead and get creative with the restrictions on deliveries of food and difficulties accessing superstores and grocery stores, etc. That might be difficult, but if you make sure to use all your ingredients, buy local. I know during the COVID-19 crisis, we've looked into more local sources for food and found a number of farm shops, etc., that are delivering or do a pickup. So that's been a really interesting change in our behaviour. Buy in bulk, decant smaller containers, put in the freezer, defrost as you need it. Obviously, those containers either plastic that you already have in the house or glass. Preferably not throw away one-use plastic bags. And one key thing which I've started to understand better more recently is the food expiration dates. Best before means it's all about quality and how the food looks. You can use it past that date. Use by means it's actually about you don't use this food past this date. Don't consume this food past this date. So that's a key distinction. And there's a very interesting app called Too Good To Go, which is certainly available in the UK. You can get it on on both iPhone and Android, and it links you with local restaurants that are that have food that would have to be thrown away, but you can buy what they call a magic bag very cheaply, and you can go and pick it up from them, and it's very cheap. It's in the UK, it's like £2.50 or £3 for a magic bag. So I recommend you download that app. There's lots of options in London, not so many where I am out near Newbury, but certainly if you're in London, have a look at the app, it's excellent. A little bit of background to me. Thanks, Sarah, for the intro. I am a geologist. I've got 19 years experience across the extractive sector, starting out in quarrying and then moving into exploration and more mining. For Accenture, I'm the mining lead for our Applied Intelligence division. Applied Intelligence is our advanced analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, data engineering division that focuses on working with our clients and across the other divisions of Accenture to make the most of the data, get most value out of the data, ensure that the data is being utilised to improve the way in which our mining clients are operating. And I'll talk a bit more about data and how you can utilise data later on. So resource stewardship. Resource stewardship really is the careful planning and management of our resources. That's resources globally, but it's also resources specific to a deposit or operation. And it really does start with responsible mining. In Accenture, we apply an ethos of 000. That's zero harm, zero loss, and zero waste. And we apply this ethos to every single project we do, even if it's a transformation in an operating model, or if it's a very specific project solving an operational issue or a business need. We apply this ethos, and wherever it's applicable to that project, to the outcomes of that project, we ensure that it's factored in and incorporated. Zero harm, everybody will be familiar with. It's the #1 goal of the entire industry. Obviously, a zero mindset for health, safety, environment, and community. Set and meet emissions targets, and I know a number of our miners have adjusted those emissions targets recently. And then, of course, the effective environmental and social and governance, which is a topic that has come to the fore in the last 12 to 24 months. It's slightly, maybe perhaps a little bit gone off the boil, given that everyone is dealing with COVID-19 and operations going on care and maintenance and lockdown, etc. But I am certain that hasn't gone away. We, as Accenture, are involved in the Mining Journal Stakeholder Engagement Programme. If you're not aware of that, have a look at the Mining Journal website. And as part of that, we will be having a roundtable discussion with a number of other stakeholders in the industry, including the miners, but also the investment community, as to how we can engage with stakeholders better for effective ESG. Zero loss is not just about productivity, but of course it is about productivity as well. End-to-end value chain optimization, scaling operations for economics, not economies of scale, as was the traditional approach in the past, and eliminating energy and water loss in the system. And zero waste, again, speaks to water and energy. Make sure to recycle wastewater, work towards being carbon neutral. I know that's a target for many of our miners, and we are supporting our mining clients in that. And then we've already heard from in a couple of presentations about the circular economy. So apply the circular economy into the broader strategy of the company, but also into that operational strategy. So reduce, reuse, repair, recover and look at the recycling marketplace. A number of our clients have been investigating alternative uses for tailings, or also recovery of mineral from tailings, where processing techniques have improved in the last 5-10 years. I'm now going to play this video, which is something we developed. We developed it with autonomous operations in mind, but actually it speaks to that broader resource stewardship goal. Sarah, let me know if you can't hear the sound.
We're not hearing any sound at the moment.
Okay. Right, let me see, just hold on one moment, and I will try and change the share computer sound. There we go. So
in 2035, we live in a world where mining operations are neither seen nor heard. Yet they are experiencing unprecedented levels of efficiency. They are attracting gifted students from the best colleges to a workforce where employees operate safely with a shared purpose. It is a world where our mines give back to the planet and steward our resources for the long term, whilst investing in local communities and providing opportunities for development. They are respected, responsible, and always innovating. This is the new world of mining, powered by autonomous operations.
So central to this vision is that mines are really going to fundamentally change the way they operate. In the past, we've had mines designed for maximising production. Energy and water has been used as required, as per the nameplate capacity requirements. Assets are very much dependent on operator control and oversight. We've had siloed teams. organised by activity and segment of the value chain. We've got most of the workforce at the dirty end of mining, so on site. I've mentioned economies of scale, where in the last 20 years or so, it's been bigger and bigger and bigger trucks move more material at one go. And there's always been a predetermined mine plan with very much plan-driven decision-making. And as any of us who've worked in mining know, as soon as you start that shift, almost always that you're off plan. Some piece of equipment is no longer available. Development hasn't extended to where you needed it to, so you need to adjust. So what we're moving to are mines designed for maximum productivity, minimizing waste, energy, water, and environmental impact and consumption. We've got decision autonomy, and I'll explain a little bit more in a minute about what I mean by that. So the operations are self-aware and self-organizing. Multidisciplinary working, so very much fully integrated, cross-disciplinary working, which we know is a lot more efficient and effective, and particularly at mitigating risk. Interoperability between systems, that is something that I know quite a number of our software providers in mining are working towards. And then we also, as a company, as Accenture, we are working to assist our clients in creating integrated operations. Humans more and more will be operating remotely. Our estimate is in the next 5 years or so, we will actually only have 10% of the workforce of the mining company on site, and scaled for economics and agility rather than the bigger the better. Certainly customer driven, so understanding what your end user needs and working out where to extract the mineral to meet that need, and live mine planning. So you have a mine plan, you have your short-term mine plan, but actually you're able to adjust in shift as different events occur, and very much data-driven decision making. So it's back to that data point is key. The industry trends of why we're actually seeing this huge pivot for the industry. The industry is certainly choosing a new path. The safety is paramount. Eliminate risk and protect all, whether that be people or the environment, society, communities, lives and livelihoods. Sustainability, obviously with climate change, which is no longer now a sort of lefty issue. It is very much mainstream. Almost all of our population on the planet believe that climate change is happening and that we need to take action to address that. And then one of the key shifts has been the move from shareholder value being the primary goal to value for all stakeholders. And in the last 12 to 24 months, we've seen our institutional investors become very vociferous about that, which is really interesting. But it makes sense if you think that their interest is in a return on their investment, and certainly for the institutional investors, they're investors to them. If their investment is at risk from social license to operate, from tailings dams failures, from companies not meeting emissions targets or regulatory targets, then that means they won't get that return on investment. So it is in their interest. It's not purely altruistic, but I would like to believe we are all moving to an approach that resource stewardship without harming the environment and the people and other living beings on the environment is everyone's goal. Interestingly as well, the BHP announced last year that they're now measuring all operations based on social value as well as economic. And I've put this diagram here in the middle, which is representing the triple bottom line, which is an accounting measure that's been around for some time. But BHP and in fact Vedanta are the only mining companies at the moment who've specifically referenced triple bottom line. But what we anticipate is in the bid for all of our mining companies to be reporting and measured on a standardized basis, rather than having lots of different initiatives that they need to report to, triple bottom line will become the norm. So why this monumental turning point for the industry? Well, the miners are all being forced to re-examine their relationships. I've mentioned before about the institutional investors. They are most definitely voting with their feet and investing increasingly in funds where ESG, there's a high rating for ESG. The workforce, the demographic is changing. We've got a significant increase in millennials and Gen Z, who are those who are currently 25 and younger, or 25 to 8 years old, who are now coming into the workforce, and their attitudes are entirely different. They look upon the world differently. Their purpose is different, and their requirement for companies to stand up and say, be accountable. So if a company makes a mistake, say, yes, I've made a mistake, but this is what we're planning to do about it. With social media, that is obviously that's part of the creation of particularly Gen Z's approach. But with social media bringing to the attention the activities of mining companies, we have society more broadly more informed. I say informed because some of what's on social media is not necessarily the absolute truth, but certainly there's more access to information, and therefore our communities and society is rightly demanding safeguarding of lives and livelihoods. The end users, so the actual customers, are also choosing more sustainable products, and this is driving behaviours back upstream, and we're seeing that then reflected in the manufacturers of those products. So in the past, miners have been rather disconnected from even the manufacturers, but certainly from the end use customers. And we're now seeing these integrated supply chain partnerships being agreed, including Glencore has an agreement with Samsung to provide cobalt. Glencore also has an agreement with BMW to provide cobalt, and both of those are primarily to ensure that they're sourcing their cobalt from a mine that isn't infringing on human rights, so they're guaranteeing that element. And we've got Rio Tinto has an agreement with Nespresso to supply all of the aluminium for the Nespresso capsules, so that Nespresso can then say to their customers, we are sourcing our aluminium from a sustainable source, in that the aluminium is generated through hydroelectric power. And then I'm sure I've mentioned climate change. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with the Paris agreements, and that everybody is moving towards those as targets. So some of the targets of our miners are out at 2050, which I certainly feel is far too far out. We need to bring those closer, and we are working with some of our miners to not only to monitor their energy consumption and emissions, but also to help them implement technologies to mitigate those. And so the technologies, what technologies do we have for planning and management operations? They are numerous. The new building blocks of technologies are enabling a completely different way of approaching operations. And we've seen this exponential change and development in technology over the last 10 years or so, with the Internet of Things, connectivity and mobility. We're now seeing things like extended reality being brought into the operational space. Drones are, but drones are used as standard now. That's nothing new. So drones for data capture, enabling that information to be received in a much shorter time frame, and therefore action to be able to be taken. Autonomous robots, or even just robotics, it's certainly more increasingly being used in the mining space, and artificial intelligence. We're working with a number of our clients in all stages of the mining value chain on different solutions for artificial intelligence. One of which, and relative to Murray's presentation before, one of which is developing a machine learning technique for geological modelling, so that you're much more accurate in your geological modelling, but also the process is much quicker. So you can apply that in the exploration space, but you can also apply it in your grade control space or ore control space. And therefore you're able to reduce the amount of waste that you'd be pulling out and be far more accurate about targeting the mineral. Oh, and one thing also to mention on here is distributed ledger is actually the formal name for blockchain, and I think that was raised in the previous presentation as well, or 2 presentations ago. So a number of our clients, and Accenture is involved with developing blockchain for various different minerals. We know that De Beers is using blockchain for tracking of diamond provenance. And we see that as that is an effective tool for tracing provenance of mineral and ensuring that it's coming from a source that is responsibly mined. So where are we at the moment? I'm not going to labour this slide, just to point out a few of the limitations of the way we typically mine. The process flows one way from upstream to downstream. We have a lot of human engagement. So not all, but obviously at many mine sites you have an operator on board. We have traditional tailing storage facilities, which we all know there's a significant risk that posed with them. We don't have remote operating centres as standard. That is certainly changing, and there's a lot of rehandling of minerals through the process, which requires more energy and more water consumption generally. What's possible? So this is our vision for, I'd say, future mining, but actually this is entirely possible now. You have autonomous equipment where it makes sense to do so. The data is integrated, so you have multiple different disciplines accessing the same data. You have a remote operating centre, so you don't have people at site, and you have autonomous decision making, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. You have renewable energy sources. You have the likes of bulk sorting, which enable the ore to be sorted as it comes out of the mine, or at the point of source in the mine, and therefore you're not sending additional material to the processing plant to be processed and consuming additional energy and water in the process. Number one priority I'm going to focus on is obviously making zero harm a reality. We did a study with the World Economic Forum in 2017 that looked at the mining and metal industry across the world, and on the back of that study, one of the outcomes was that through autonomous operations, robotics, and remote operating centres, there's the potential reduction of over 20,000 injuries and 500 lives. Now, we are seeing widespread adoption of remote operating centres, advanced analytics certainly, and centres of excellence for specific capabilities. Miners are moving towards making those better, more informed decisions with increasing multidisciplinary collaboration across the value chain. And let me move on to, I'm conscious of time, Sarah, let me move on just to clarify some of the terminology around autonomous operations. What do we mean? So often when I talk about autonomous operations, people instantly think of vehicles, equipment, trucks particularly. And the example here, for the purposes of being able to relate to it, is a truck, but I'll just talk through what the different terms are. So automated, you have a truck that follows a pre-programmed journey from A to B, not connected, and it doesn't have the capability to understand its surroundings. It's really just, it's almost a pre-programmed remote control. We estimate 3% of mobile equipment across the world at the moment sits in this category. Autonomous is that truck has situational awareness and can change its course due to a change in conditions. So if there's an obstacle in the way, it still knows what its target is, and it can go around that obstacle or divert to a better route to meet that target. Autonomy is about equipment and processes and decision making. So each piece of equipment, fixed or mobile, is connected and understands the situation of the other equipment, and they're all working for a larger goal. So not each piece of equipment trying to achieve something, it's the operation is trying to stay in its most efficient setting possible, and everything adjusts according to that. And the technology is there to do that. You need to go through a process. This diagram, it doesn't mean that you have to go through every stage of maturity in order to achieve it, because you can focus on your areas where you're high risk or high opportunity. But we do have the capabilities to create automated decision making and automate processes. And as you build out your integrated system, you can then you then create the connectivity between each element, each stage of the value chain, and each process. Really, the goal is data-driven decision making, and very much an integrated operation, so that you can take action at the right time. Just briefly talk about data and why it's the most valuable resource that any of our companies have. We have 10 times more data in the world than we had in 2013. The 45% of the population uses a smartphone. That varies. If you're in a developed country, that's 75% using it. In a less developed country, that may be only 25%. But certainly many have mobile phones and are used to using smartphones and the inbuilt analytics that you have access to in those smartphones. This is not just about data, it's about what you do with data. And traditionally in mining, data has just flowed upstream to downstream, with no interaction between the different disciplines, and no information feeding back upstream to learn and inform the process. Yes, we have a reconciliation, but reconciliation has been traditionally done as an exercise, almost an accounting exercise, and the results of which are available a month after the end of month or the reconciliation period, when it's too late to take any action to correct. So responsible mining requires informed decisions, multidisciplinary collaboration, and an integrated value chain. Sarah, how am I doing for time? I'm conscious
we love you, Liv, so if you keep going, but if you can wrap up quite quickly.
Okay. Just to highlight some of the key challenges, the technology is there. It's all in various stages of development. Some of the key challenges remain. There is a lack of digital data integration and interoperability. Insights are generally limited because we're lacking this connectivity between different disciplines. The culture needs a change, because that many decades of several hundred years of mining, where we've had the siloed value chain, performance review, the way disciplines work just in their unit, that needs a change, and we see that a lot with our clients. The complexity of dependencies and needs between different segments of the value chain need to be accounted for, and in fact I've developed a tool in Accenture that helps us look at operations allowing for those complexities and dependencies, so you're not looking at segments in isolation. And working practice change is critical, because it's not just about the data, and it's not just about generating through very smart technology the insights on the data, but it's actually changing the workflows. And unless the workflow changes, you won't affect the value and the benefit and make things safer. I've mentioned most of this, so I will skip over that and just bring to your attention a couple of case studies. So one is what we refer to as connected mine. It's integrated operations. We at Accenture provide the platform technology, which is either Azure or AWS cloud technology, but then we work with our clients to pull in information from disparate data sources and generate the insights that are specific to roles and the capability to take action in shift. And we're also working with a number of the software providers on incorporating planning, short-term planning, into that integrated operations platform capability, so that you can start to make those adjustments in shift for an optimal outcome and the safest outcome possible. Through Connected Mine, we have where we have implemented on a number of mines, we've got some interesting safety features where we're monitoring fatigue of operators, as well as whole route conditions. So the sensors on the trucks give information and feedback to the system about what the condition is underneath the truck, and then you can take action if something is deteriorating to prevent an incident from occurring. And one final case study is something close to my heart, which I used this as an example in my master's dissertation 20 years ago. Not intelligent tailings management then, but tailings, that we needed to look at tailings and how we manage tailings. So we are working with a number of clients to develop intelligent tailings management, whereby we couple the satellite data with on-the-ground data, apply analytics and machine learning, and then it's similar to Connected Mine, create a dashboard that enables people to, one, monitor, so you've got real-time situation awareness that's reliable, you've got insights, so predictive modeling allows you to see what is happening as you're storage facility is evolving and being operated. And then identification of hazards and prediction of risk allows you to take that action so you can make those data-driven decisions. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Liv. That was absolutely fantastic and a huge amount of content to get through. So thank you for that. You do have some questions coming through in chat and in the Q&A. So if I may, I'm going to push you onto that electronic format.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah. Thank you, and apologies for going over.
It's quite all right. It's absolutely fantastic to hear all of this. It's great. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for a virtual thank you to the wonderful Liv Carroll. It's brilliant, Liv.